Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 233 of the podcast, or you're joining us live on Facebook or YouTube. Today is Sunday, March 21st. Hope everybody had a fun and safe St. Patrick's Day this past week. Hope everybody was being responsible out there, even though that's not what the day is all about. I hope everybody had a good time. Coming off of a lot of combat sports action, the NCAA Wrestling Championships wrapped up yesterday. We had UFC on ESPN 22. No, UFC on ESPN 21, which was also called UFC Vegas 22 for some reason. Before we get into any of that, let me introduce, all the way from New Jersey, feeling refreshed and wide awake, Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, how you feeling on this, what is almost afternoon on this Sunday, my friend?
Yeah, Bill, that's my bad. I overslept just a little bit after staying up to watch these fights. Bill, I thought this card was going to be on a little bit earlier. But either way, Bill, I feel awesome. Bill, you know I'm a big soccer head. I'm actually wearing my favorite soccer team, Chelsea, from London. And Bill, for the first time in what feels like, I forget what the count is exactly. It might be 7 years, but it feels like a lot longer. Bill, Chelsea have made it into the quarterfinals of the Champions League, which is the best teams in Europe from all the different leagues play each other. And Bill, I'm very excited. We beat the current team in first place in Spain as of right now. That season's not wrapped up yet. And the team we're playing in the top 8 is probably the weakest team that we could have pulled up in our bracket. But yeah, Bill, very excited about that. I think we have an easier bracket to get to the final. And the final is definitely going to be tough. I think it's going to be this German team that won it last year. Bill, they basically bitch slapped us when we played them last season. But this season is going to be different, Bill. I think we're going all the way this year.
All right, Jeff. Well, hey, if you're rooting for Chelsea, I'm rooting for Chelsea. And shout out to this American who is praising you for your work as a teacher, my friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Not easy work, especially in this current climate. And we're gonna isolate some of the audience by leading off talking about soccer, and I'm gonna isolate more of the audience by leading off talking about wrestling, because I'm excited about the NCAA wrestling championships that wrapped up yesterday for a couple reasons. There's always big stories that come out of the NCAA wrestling championships. Like, there's always wild stuff that happens. It doesn't get talked about enough. This year, there were two big stories that I thought were worth mentioning. Even if you're not interested in wrestling at all, I think these two stories are worth mentioning. So, Iowa's Spencer Lee won his third title. If that's not impressive enough, Jeff, he's a little guy, 125-pounder, won his third championship. But what's impressive about this, Jeff, he won it with no ACLs in his legs. And I think did I cut out, Jeff?
No, I heard you. I'm just still in shock. That's absolutely amazing.
So he tore his one ACL, and I guess had a surgery on it like before the season, and then he tore his other one 8 days before the final and went ahead and wrestled on it anyway. And the broadcasters had to pressure him to get him to say, like, hey, you kind of alluded to some adversity you were going through. And he was like, yeah, I tore my ACL 8 days ago. And if you watch the final match, Jeff, you couldn't tell anything was wrong. He shut the guy out. I think it was 8-0 or 7-0 in that final match where he won the title. And then he just jogs off the mat like, third title, no big deal, with no ACLs. He said he couldn't even sprawl. which is why he was using such an aggressive attack. He was just constantly shooting in on the legs. Had to start in a referee's position in the second period, was able to just stand up like nothing.
Wow.
I had a torn ACL, Jeff. I can tell you, in all honesty, I could not wrestle with that kind of pain. These guys, they're just cut from a different cloth, Jeff. It's just a different level of toughness. When pressed about it, he said that excuses are for wusses.
Holy shit, dude! Wow.
It's just like I'm so happy to see that there's still like this level of toughness in competitive sports. And unfortunately, it's not a sport that a lot of people watch. But if you're not impressed by that, then I don't know what impresses you about competition. Like, guy had no ACLs in his knees, and he won a national championship, which is one of the harder national championships to win. Just incredible story. And Iowa, his team, Iowa, was the overall winner of the NCAAs this year by a pretty large margin. They scored 129 points. The next closest, Penn State, no surprise, with 113.5 points. And then Oklahoma State came in third. Arizona did pretty well this year too. The guy from Arizona was the one who was wrestling Spencer Lee in the finals. But yeah, reaction to that, Jeff, and then I'll get into my other NCAA story here that my buddy Eddie Law already mentioned in the comments here.
Bill, I'm just in shock, man. Dude, to have, wrestling is an exhausting sport, and it's very hard. And dude, to be able to do anything relating to sports, with not one but two torn ACLs, man, huge credit to Spencer Lee, dude. God bless him, dude. Just unbelievable. I mean, and just to qualify for the NCAAs, that's really tough. Mm-hmm. You have to go through a huge process to get to it, and it's, you're going up against other colleges. It's not like this European Championship where you're playing only like a certain percentage of teams. You have to work to get there. And it just, wow, man. Like, I'm really at a loss for words. That's just so inspiring to me. And I love what you said about having that mentality and being cut of a different cloth. Bill, I know I, for a fact, am not cut from this cloth, man. I mean, like, I start crying when I wake up and my neck is stiff, But huge credit to Spencer Lee, man.
Yeah, it really is. And wrestling is such a special sport. The people who excel at that are truly special athletes. Like, it's just a mental toughness that you don't find in a lot of other sports. So there was that, which, so impressive. And then of course his team, Iowa wins the whole thing. So I encourage everybody to go and watch that match, even if you're not interested in wrestling, and, watch what he does on two bad knees with no ACLs in them. He pressures the entire time, the entire match, doesn't let the other guy score a single point on him. I can't stress enough how impressed I was with his performance. The other story that comes out of this is very unfortunate, because Stanford University has decided to cut their wrestling program along with 10 other varsity sports. And the reason they cited was that during COVID, they had some budget expenditures that went way over the limit, and they wouldn't be able to fund the program. So the wrestling team goes out on their own. They all move into one of the wrestlers' parents' houses in California or something. They set up bunks for them there, and they trained there, and they still entered the tournament. They had a couple of guys win. And then they raised money from alumni and just other generous donors and stuff. They raised $12 million, Jeff. And I know a lot of people probably don't know too much about, running a sports program. It's not like a football program for Division I. To run a high-level wrestling program for Division I probably will cost you about $150,000 a year. Okay, that's your coaches, that's your facilities, that's your that's your gear, your uniforms, everything like that. Probably about $150,000. They raised $12 million. That's enough to keep the program running for like at least a decade, probably more, considering inflation and anything else. So they raise all this money and the university's like, nah, they declined them. So Stanford goes out and they wrestled. I believe some of them wrestled with their singlets turned inside out. So they did not represent the university. And some of them just wore plain black singlets. I don't know the back end, how everything worked with this, like how they were actually able to enter the tournament, but there they were. And, a couple of guys were able to do it. And it's such a shame, Jeff. I hate to see this happen. Now, granted, Stanford is a private university. They can do whatever they want with their money. But, when the team gets together like this and there's so much support shown for them and they go out and prove that they can be champions, and the university is still like, no, we're good. We don't want to do the wrestling thing anymore. Like, fine, it's on you. But, it sucks for the guys who are juniors and sophomores and stuff who are, coming up and trying to make something of themselves in this sport, which is, pretty much a thankless sport. It's not like there's a ton of money to be won or anything. It's just a matter of pride. I mean, poor Spencer Lee's going to have both his knees reconstructed, and, all he has to show for it is, some medals and maybe a couple of minimal sponsorships. It's really unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that people who attend Stanford in the future won't be able to have that wrestling program. I didn't have a wrestling program in college. I always kind of wished that I did wrestle in college. We had a club program where it was just kind of like a bunch of guys would meet up and throw each other around and kind of share like techniques that we had learned and, simulated matches and stuff. But we didn't really compete against other schools or anything. And that's mostly because wrestling wasn't my main sport. I was really a lacrosse player, and I was going to college to play lacrosse, which I couldn't do either because I blew my knee out. So I wish I had a little more of that Spencer Lee toughness in me. But what are you going to do? So it's unfortunate, man. And I just want to take this platform to shame Stanford University for taking away the wrestling program, because these guys went out and organized themselves and went out and performed in the championship without the support of their school. And even Daniel Cormier was tweeting at Stanford University, like, they raised $12 million. What else do you want them to do? Reinstate the program. So I'm here to plead for the same thing, Jeff. Let the kids wrestle. They clearly want to. They're clearly motivated. They're clearly tough kids. They wanted to go to your university for whatever reason. So let them represent it. They're bringing the money to the table themselves. Like, I don't understand what the problem is, but I know there's a lot of back end stuff and a lot of political bullshit that comes along with running a university. So there's all that. And that's my rant on college wrestling, Jeff. I could go on, probably do a whole episode about the rest of the NCAA finals, but I don't want to isolate that much of the audience. But give me your thoughts on the Stanford thing, and then we'll move on to UFC.
No, dude, that's terrible, man. A lot of those wrestlers are going to this college to wrestle. So, yeah, dude, I'd be packing my bags, honestly. That's awful, especially after raising that much money for the program. And now my question is, what happens to the money? Does the university keep it? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'll have to look into that, because I don't know if they were raising it like privately and they were gonna offer it to the school and donate it to the school, or if the money was donated directly to the school. Maybe it just gets refunded. I don't know how all of that works. If anybody out there is savvy on these kind of financials, I know we got a couple of CPAs that listen to the show, so maybe you could give me the inside scoop on that, and I'll relay it to the audience. But speaking of the toughness of wrestlers, Jeff, 3-time Division II All-American Derek Brunson made the wrestling look easy against Kevin Holland last night. UFC Vegas 22, UFC on ESPN 21. I still can't get over how confusing that is. It shouldn't take $12 million to be able to align the counting on on these fight nights. It should be a little cheaper. We need to get on the same page here. But Derek Brunson, man, and for anybody who wants to say something like, "Oh, he just held him down the whole time," like Kevin Holland is a legit badass, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Travis Lutter. And Derek Brunson took him down with ease. Like, he made it look easy. And in the beginning, Kevin Holland is all about this shtick about being the big mouth, and he was talking through the whole fight. And then somewhere, at the end of the third round, he stopped talking so much, and you could tell he started to break a little bit. He was never really out of the fight, but he was also never really in it. He clipped Brunson a couple of times, but this was domination by Derek Brunson. I think 16 minutes and 55 seconds of ground control. So give me your thoughts on this main event, Jeff.
Bill, I think Holland, I don't know if in his mind he felt that he couldn't beat Kevin Brunson, or if he felt he wasn't prepared.
Derek Brunson, Jeff.
Derek Brunson. I don't know if Kevin Holland was feeling a little unprepared, or he was trying to play mind games because he felt like he didn't have the skill set to beat Brunson. But I felt like he didn't have the skill set to beat Derek Brunson. So dude. I couldn't stand. At first the talking was kind of funny, but then in the 5th round, I was like, all right, this dude's kind of a dick. Like, dude, all he did was talk, and stand, flat-footed in front of Kevin Brunson.
Derek Brunson.
Sorry, Derek Brunson. Sorry, it's all the K's, Bill. But Bill, so the only problem for me is, and I'm really happy Derek Brunson won. I love Derek Brunson. He's a very exciting fighter to watch. Maybe a lot of people won't agree with me because his game can be a little grindy sometimes, but that's wrestling, which I don't mind at all. And my only problem is, or at least the thing that I believe will be an issue, is will Dana give Derek Brunson a title shot? I don't know, because so Bill, I was actually going to ask you that in 1 second, but I think that it's a terrible matchup for Israel Adesanya after watching his fight with Jan Blachowicz. And Derek Brunson, he's very, humble. He's he doesn't really like to talk trash too much. You could even tell that in the post-fight interview where he said, I was just focusing on hitting him in the mouth. But yeah, I unfortunately, as much as I love Derek Brunson and I want him to get a title shot, I don't know if it's going to happen. Bill, what's your take on this?
It's definitely not going to happen, since Israel Adesanya knocked Derek Brunson out in the first round when they fought. But that was a different Derek Brunson. I brought this up several times every time Brunson fights. Like, when he's in there and he's composed, much like Dustin Poirier, he's one of the most dangerous men on a roster, as far as his ability to just break guys. He kind of hit a period in his career where he fell in love with knocking people out, and that's great and it's exciting. But it got him into a lot of trouble, like in the Robert Whittaker fight, like in the Israel Adesanya fight, where he let his emotions get the best of him. But when he's focused, like he was last night against Kevin Holland, and kind of tunes everything out and uses those 3-time Division II All-American wrestling skills that he acquired, it's hard to deny that this guy is an unstoppable force. I think the most he can hope for is a top 5 opponent next. I would think he did call out Paulo Costa. That's a dangerous call out, not because it's a dangerous fight for him, but you could book a fight against that guy and he pulls out with, a torn bicep or a tummy ache, or he gets beaten. He says he was drunk during the fight.
Oh god. I don't know, dude. Paulo Costa, I think after that Izzy Adesanya fight, I don't think he should be pulling out of any fights, man. He needs to rack up some wins here.
Yeah, I would think that the next logical fight for Brunson would either be the loser of Whitaker and Gastelum or the loser of Till and Vettori. I would like to see any of those fights. So Brunson against Darren Till, that would be a fun fight. Darren Till is a tough guy to take down. He hits really hard. He's a lot more patient than Kevin Holland. So he would pick his shots a little bit better in there. And I think that was Kevin Holland's problem too. He was trying to rush in, and he was ending up in these clinch scenarios. And that was the experience of Derek Brunson. He kind of lulled Holland into his game, into his world. Sometimes when you're going with a better striker and you're a better grappler, the more experienced person will get pulled into the other person's game. So if one person's a good boxer, a better boxer, the other person's a better grappler, the grappler might end up boxing with them. Just because they're able to play some tricks and some mind games. And I don't think there was a mind games going on on the part of Derek Brunson, even though he wasn't saying anything. That was part of it. He was being so stoic for a reason, and he lulled Kevin Holland into those grappling exchanges where he showed his, utmost superiority. Those takedowns he hit were beautiful. He only needed 6 takedowns to get, almost 17 minutes of ground control time in this main event. Very impressed with Derek Brunson. And I'm still a big fan of Kevin Holland, obviously. He was my pick. A lot of you may remember he was my pick for Fighter of the Year 2020. I think he's got a lot of potential. He was just biting off a little bit more than he could chew. He was riding high off of that impressive knockout over Jacare. You could argue Jacare was maybe, a little bit on the way out when that fight happened. But, I think this isn't going to affect Kevin Holland's rise to the top. I think he just has things he needs to work on. He's even admitted that he's a little bit lazy at times. So he needs to get in there, work on his wrestling. He didn't do anything to get up from the bottom, Jeff. He put that body triangle on, which is a stalling tactic. So if you want to say that Brunson was just holding him down, Holland was holding himself down, trying to get a stand up, and Brunson stayed busy enough for Herb Dean to not stand it up. So I don't understand anybody saying that he just held him down. Also, my argument is always, have you ever taken a professional athlete down who doesn't want to be on the ground and held him there? That's impressive on its own. I know it's not the most exciting style, but I was very impressed with Derek Brunson. And we saw a lot of glaring holes from Kevin Holland that we didn't see before, and he's got to go back to the drawing board and work on those. Any other thoughts on this main event, Jeff?
Yeah, no, I just think, I'm still a fan of Kevin Holland. I just think he needs to focus a little bit more. And, he's very talented. And I think that can sometimes lead to laziness. Probably those guys who, and I guess I've kind of seen it in being in sports and stuff. Some of those guys who are talented, they don't train as hard because, they've been blessed with those gifts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, Kevin Holland, he's a great fighter. So I don't think, like you said, I think it's just a speed bump on his road to the top. But, Bill, I would actually like to see some Derek Brunson matchups with – I'd actually like to see him fight what's his face? Robert Whitaker. I think that's a really fun fight. I think he takes down Darren Till pretty easily after what Tyron Woodley did to him a couple of years back. But either way, all those matchups sound really, really fun for Darren.
Yeah. Well, remember, that's also a rematch because Whitaker knocked out Brunson several years back. But that was the Derek Brunson who used to fly across the cage face first. It would be a different fight now for sure. I wouldn't mind seeing that rematch either. That would be a good one. Co-main event wasn't supposed to be the co-main event because something happened with the COVID protocols with the Gregor Gillespie fight. Nobody was more disappointed than me until it came time, towards the end of the card. And I was struggling to stay awake because this one was on so late. And then I was like kind of glad that one was postponed. But Max Griffin stepping up into the co-main event slot gets a knockout win over the very tough Kenan Song 2 minutes 20 seconds into the first round. Just a 1-2 down the pipe, which is Max Griffin's style. That's what he's known for: straight punches, straight punches, straight punches. And his son was born 2 weeks ago, so he had a little extra dad strength on those punches. Jeff, give me your thoughts on the co-main event here.
Yeah, dude, Max Griffin looked great in there. Song Kenan, very talented as well. But, dude, Max Griffin has bricks for hands, dude. Like you said, that 1-2, it looked like one shot might have been, like, behind the ear a little bit. And that's a sleeper spot, man. Your legs go out if you get hit there. So, good win for Max Griffin. I've been high on him for a little bit. I've been following him for a couple of fights now. I think even before he fought a certain platinum fighter who will not be named. But, yeah, dude, Max Griffin's a tough dude, man. And, he didn't even show off his grappling. I think his grappling is very underrated. But it's because of how good his boxing is. He does all the basics so well, man. So huge win for Max Griffin. Really excited that that fight got moved up to the main event, Bill, because it didn't even last one round. So
yeah,
wrapped up pretty early night.
Yeah, and with Gillespie's grinding style, and Riddell having a similar style, that one probably wouldn't have ended as quickly in that co-main event slot. So congratulations to Max Griffin on becoming a father and then 2 weeks later getting a big knockout. I don't know if he got a bonus. There was a lot of great knockouts on this card, but I would imagine he'd be up there for it, being in that co-main event slot. Before that, I believe it was the UFC debut for Montserrat Ruiz against the Dana White Contender Series standout Cheyenne Bays. It's always so misleading to read this name because it's spelled Bays. So I don't know why it's Bays. I don't know what, maybe it's some kind of European pronunciation or something. I don't know, but we'll go with Bays, however she wants to. It's obviously her husband's name who fought earlier on the card as well. But the story of this fight, Jeff, the head and arm throw and that scarf hold position that Ruiz was able to hold Bays in for most of the fight, and just punching her in the face. Wasn't even really going for submissions or anything. Bays was able to stay out of trouble, but she wasn't able to get out of that position. And even when she was just put right back in it. It was almost like a cheat code in a video game. She just kept throwing her down with that head and arm, which is it's a dangerous technique in MMA because you can get your back taken pretty easily, but it seemed like she had such a vice grip, man. She wasn't giving up that position for anything. Give me your thoughts on this one, Jeff.
Yeah, dude. For that takedown, Ruiz, she did like this. She like snapped into it. She did it so fast that I don't know if Bays had a chance to react to it. But yeah, it would be so out of nowhere, man. Like they'd be kind of in this clinch position a little bit, and next thing you know, Bays was just on her back. So huge credit to Ruiz, very talented wrestler from Mexico. I think she has won a national championship in Mexico for wrestling. I could be mistaken on that.
Yeah, I think several.
Okay. Yeah. So I think you're right, Bill. I think it's more than a couple. But yeah, man. Really impressed with Ruiz. Unfortunately, I was not a fan of what happened afterwards. That debauchery.
It was like a Jerry Springer episode.
Yeah, she was like, "I'll follow you home." I'm like, "Dude, you won!"
No, that was Bays that said that.
Oh,
So I think what happened was somebody said that Ruiz spit on her towards the end of the fight, and then she was giving her the finger, and then Baze yells, "I'll follow you home, bitch." I thought it was hilarious, especially because Ruiz has no clue what she even said, probably because she doesn't speak English.
oh yeah, I forgot that part.
but I mean, you could assume that she was saying angry stuff, so she's just flipping her off. And then I got to start writing down who says this shit, because I saw somebody said on Twitter, like, what's she gonna do after she follows her home? Get pinned down in her driveway by her head and arm?
Oh man, that's brutal. I love Twitter so much.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that Baze was frustrated. It's a frustrating thing to be held down by somebody for 15 minutes. I mean, this is why a lot of people don't like the wrestling style. It's uncomfortable. Most people would rather get knocked out in the first round than just be, held down and made to feel helpless for an entire fight. It's uncomfortable. It's smothering. It's frustrating. It feels like it lasts forever. And it's unfortunate for Baze, but man, Ruiz showed that she's a beast, and who knows what other tools. She only needed that one weapon that we've seen from her before, but who knows what else she has in her tool belt. And then as her striking develops too, she's going to be a problem, man. She got some interesting tattoos as well. They go like, it's very clean, goes like right up to her jawline. It almost looks like it's choking her. Like when she talks, it looks like the tattoos are like strangling her. So it's like,
yeah, Bill, those are borderline gang member tattoos, dude. I mean, it kind of looked like the top of like a blouse to me.
yeah,
But
yeah. If I were Baze, I wouldn't want to follow her home. You might be meeting some cartel in a driveway or something.
yeah, that's not a neighborhood you want to be following somebody home to. So
Yeah. But it's such a great soundbite. I'll follow you home, bitch.
And Bill, unfortunately, it didn't go well for either of the Baze family members here. The husband didn't fare as well. He did worse.
Yeah, he did. He got knocked out in the second round by Bruno Silva in the first fight of the card. Pretty good fight. I think Baze was worried about the grappling of Silva, and sometimes you get too wrapped up in that, and then next thing you know, you're getting punched in the face. So unfortunate evening for the Bazes, but it was a good night for Adrian Yanez, who showed some really impressive striking, really impressive counter striking against Gustavo Lopez. Put him out 27 seconds into the third round. Clean knockout here. Give me your thoughts on this one, Jeff.
Yeah, dude. Lopez folded up, unfortunately, after that strike. But yeah, pretty good fight. It was pretty competitive. There was, especially on the feet, very back and forth. And I think both of these guys got a bright future in the bantamweight division. But I think this would have been a better fight to open the card, to like start the main card.
Yeah,
because I didn't know too much about these guys heading into it, but good fight nonetheless.
For sure. Tai Tuivasa getting the win over Henry Hunsucker, who stepped up on just a couple of days' notice. So big credit to him for that one. We didn't get to see him take a shoey on the broadcast because there was no crowd for somebody to hand him a shoe, which is hopefully new. I don't know how these things work, Jeff. What were we saying last week? I can't recall. I was having a couple of drinks while we were recording, but wasn't there something if Tuivasa won, you would do a shoey?
Yeah, I already did it, so it's fine.
All right, I'll take your word for it. You've always been a stand-up guy. For the sake of time, I got the card here for those of you on the video feed. I'm gonna run over the results of the prelims, Jeff, and you tell me who impressed you the most. There were quite a few. Macy Chiasson getting the unanimous decision over Marion Renault, who showed some real toughness in there, but she just took a beating for 3 rounds. Grant Dawson, with 1 second on the clock, getting the knockout victory over Leonardo Santos after he was probably going to lose this fight. It was maybe winning the 3rd round, but, definitely lost the first 2. Come from behind knockout there. Trevin Giles, I guess a somewhat debated decision over Roman Dolidze. A lot of people thought Dolidze won. I kind of thought so too. But he kept going for those leg locks, and if the judges don't know what they're looking at, they don't know that he's controlling that position on the ground, then in their eyes he's losing because he's getting punched in the face, while he's trying to tangle up the legs. They don't know how close he was to those heel hook attempts. And I think that was probably what tipped the scales in that 2nd round. Montel Jackson, 1st round TKO over Jesse Strader. And then we already talked about Bruno Silva getting the 2nd round TKO over JP Bays. So who impressed you the most, Jeff? I know I got my answer.
Oh man, Bill, it's a tough one. But I'm a big fan of the Trevin Giles versus Roman Dolidze fight. For me, I think Dolidze got robbed. I thought he won it, but nonetheless, this was a great fight. There was no fight of the night awarded because there were so many performance bonuses. But Bill, if I had to pick a fight of the night for me, it would be Giles versus Dolidze. What a great fight, man! Had me on the edge of my seat every single round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Dolidze, when it ended, I thought Dolidze won, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, he was playing footsie a lot on the ground, going for those heel hooks, and he was getting punched in the face the whole time. And if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know that he's controlling Giles's legs there. I could see why it went the other way. It was a close fight. Dolidze, I think, got a little bit too laid back in that 3rd round as well. He wasn't going for the kill. He was getting a little bit tired. He's an impressive fighter. They both are. And I think Dolidze is going to have to come out with a little bit more killer instinct next time. For me, Jeff, the most impressive on the prelims was Grant Dawson. With that knockout victory with 1 second to go over Santos, who's, just beating him all around the cage the whole fight. That come from behind. Do you know who won the bonuses? I didn't happen to.
Yeah, I got them in front of me. So it was Max Griffin, Adrian Yanez, Grant Dawson, and Bruno Silva, who knocked out JP Bays in that opener. But yeah, good that Grant Dawson got an award, because that was my second pick, Dawson versus Santos.
Yeah, I mean, the only other one that could have been in there would be Tuivasa, since he had the quickest knockout on the card. But I guess he was kind of expected to do that. Maybe that's why he didn't get the bonus. In any case, good card, man. I mean, I was really apprehensive about this one because the prelims didn't even start till 7:30. The main card didn't start till 10. And I was like, oh, man, I'm not even going to make it for this one. I was bummed out that Gillespie fight was scrapped. But then it wound up being an awesome card, one of the best ones in recent memory, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. And, I had messaged you, and I think I even posted on Twitter. The prelims were fantastic, and I wasn't sure if the main card would live up to what the prelims did, but I think they both delivered top to bottom. This was a very exciting card, man.
Yeah, and usually they don't, right? Like, usually you have awesome prelims, and then it's like the main card is a dud. And you get all hyped up like, wow, those are such great fights. And then you get a couple of snoozers and then like a disappointing main event. But, this card had everything. It had great grappling, had great knockouts. There were no submissions on this card, but, we got to see some awesome grappling exchanges, some unusual things, the head and arm from Ruiz, the wrestling of Brunson. This card really had it all. So hopefully we can get just as much out of next week, UFC 260, which lost the co-main event in Alexander Volkanovski and Brian Ortega. I'll be honest, Jeff. I forgot that fight was even happening until they announced that it wasn't happening anymore.
Yeah, not a lot of hype around that one. I think it's because everyone's just talking about how they're underestimating Stipe Miocic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which you were telling me last night you don't know why anybody would underestimate Stipe, especially after how the last fight went. But here we are. So give me your thoughts on this main event next week.
Excuse me, I was taking a sip of water. But Bill, I don't see anything different in Francis Ngannou's game that would lead me to believe that he could beat Stipe Miocic. He's been doing the same thing, swinging wild. Every now and then he'll catch somebody's chin, and that's all he needs. But Bill, Stipe is the heavyweight champion of the world for a reason. He's able to adapt to those challenges that are presented to him, right? After the knockout loss to Daniel Cormier, changed up the game. In that second fight, was able to destroy Daniel Cormier's liver. And in their third fight, he was just able to grind him out on the feet. So, Stipe is not stupid. He's not going to stand in front of Francis Ngannou so he can get knocked out and, have his lips split open. He's going to grapple Ngannou. He's going to do the same thing he did last time. Leave him looking at the lights. And Francis Ngannou, to me, it doesn't look like he's going to know what to do.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not that Stipe can't stand with Ngannou. But why would you when there's a less damaging path to victory there? And, whatever adjustments Ngannou has made since the last fight, we haven't seen an improvement in his grappling. We've just seen him continue to knock guys out, which is what he was doing before he fought Stipe the first time. So whatever improvements he's made, Stipe has made improvements as well. The word from his camp is that he's fallen in love with grappling again. He's been doing a lot of wrestling. I'm sure he's inspired by Spencer Lee, as a lot of us have been. Stipe, a former D1 wrestler himself. So, yeah, it's still a dangerous fight, man, because there's still that nasty power of Ngannou.
Oh, absolutely.
And my connection's cutting out a little bit. Can you hear me, Jeff?
Yeah, I was still able to hear you. But yeah, Bill, I agree with you. I think, absolutely he has to worry about that power. Stipe Miocic, he definitely has to worry about getting knocked out. But, Stipe, this isn't his first pony show, Bill. So, I think he has the wherewithal to go back to the well, do what got him to the dance. And Bill, like you said, something people forget is Stipe has knocked people out too. And Stipe, I think he was like a Golden Gloves fighter or a Golden Gloves champion, as well as a D1 wrestler. So wherever the fight is, Stipe, he can compete. So I think he's just gonna take the path of least resistance to hold on to that belt. So it's what champions do.
And even that path has quite a bit of resistance. About 280 pounds of resistance in Francis Ngannou. It's scary, man. Just hearing Ngannou talk is like a horror movie.
I know he's so soft-spoken, but he's such a scary dude, man. Bill, I really started to get scared of him when he cut his hair, because I feel like that made him just more aerodynamic. And and he just, like, when that happened, Bill, I just felt like there was this maturity that came with it. So yeah, dude, definitely, I'm not saying that Francis Ngannou doesn't have a chance. He absolutely does. And he is a scary heavyweight, man. But I think Stipe has already found the formula. And I think we saw that in their first fight. I think more of that. And, I don't see him coming up into any major issues. But at the same time, like you said, we haven't seen if Ngannou's grappling because he hasn't needed it. So this is going to be a really interesting fight for sure.
Yeah, I just the wrestling discrepancy was so huge in the first fight. And I just don't see how you could make up that much ground. But on the other hand, Ngannou was able to make up that much ground with his striking, with almost no background in anything. He was able to just pick up striking out of nowhere. So maybe you could do it with wrestling too. I think it's a little bit more challenging. Stipe put a lot of mat time in the years prior to even becoming a mixed martial artist, a lot of mat time into, the techniques that were used against Ngannou the first time. So, we'll see. That's why it's an exciting main event. And then we got Tyron Woodley and Vicente Luque. You got to be worried for Woodley here after, his last few performances. This is a much different fight. It's a much different fighter than he's faced. Obviously getting dominated by Usman and then by Woodley. I mean, not Woodley, Gilbert Burns, and then a Colby Covington fight where he broke his ribs. That was, you got to wonder if at 38 years old, if he should still be getting in there with a killer like Vicente Luque. But at the same time, former world champ, like you can't doubt the guy. This is a much different fight. He's not going to get taken down and held down and beat up here. But there is much more of a risk on the feet with Luque, who's one of the best strikers in the division. Give me your thoughts on this one, Jeff.
Yeah, man. Bill, you know me. I'm a big fan of Tyron Woodley, but I'm definitely worried for this one. Vicente Luque, the knockout artist, vicious power, very technical Muay Thai. I'm definitely worried for Tyron Woodley because, like you said, all those last three losses, we also don't know what that's done to his confidence, man, because Gilbert Burns dominated him, like you said. Colby Covington, all the build up to that fight, and it ended with him screaming in pain. Dude, it's being dominated by the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman, who, dude, he's looking scarier every fight, man. I don't know who can beat Usman at this point, but yeah, man, you got to be worried for Woodley. I don't think it's a good matchup the way things stand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Woodley's a guy you can never count out. Like if he still wants to get in there, he could very much, just retire and rest on his rap career. But he chooses to get in there with a killer like Luque, so you got to respect it. Thomas Almeida and Sean O'Malley. All right, this is like barely a main event fight for me. I mean, a main card fight for me. I'm not interested in seeing Sean O'Malley fight after his last fight where he, basically hurt his toe and didn't want to fight anymore. He doesn't have that Spencer Lee quality. I'll keep referencing Spencer Lee as long as I can, Jeff. It's going to be like for any time somebody does something with extreme toughness, it's going to be, they Spencer Lee'd it.
Yeah.
Let's look at this for what it is. Thomas Almeida being brought in to get knocked out by Sean O'Malley, but I don't think Thomas Almeida is the guy you want to bank on that with. He had a little bit of a rough go of it, but it seems like he's got some things together, straightened out. He looked good in his last fight. And I think it's going to be a tough fight for O'Malley, but we'll see. Jamie Malarkey and Kama Worthy, that should be a fun fight. I'm going to give you my sleeper pick here, Jeff. William Knight and Alonzo Menafield. These are two big boys who can crack. I would expect this one to be a short fight or a win for William Knight. Both of these guys have the ability to end this one in the first round with a big shot. Menifield, we know, kind of tends to struggle as the fight goes on. If he's not able to get that quick finish, he kind of puts everything into those big strikes early in the fight. William Knight, we know, can go the distance and win a fight. He's got, for as thick of a dude as he is, he's got, very good Muay Thai, traditional Muay Thai, which is not something you see from guys of his stature. And he knows how to conserve his energy in there. So the longer it goes, the more I favor William Knight. The shorter it goes, who knows? Flip a coin, Jeff. It's whoever lands a big shot first. So that's my sleeper fight pick. Then we got Hannah Goldie, who is a Team Reaper athlete. So
nice.
Shout out to Team Reaper who makes our merchandise, reaper1.co. They sponsor Hannah Goldie. So if you want to grab yourself a Hannah Goldie shirt, you can do so through them, or you can, of course, grab some MMA on the Rocks merchandise from Team Reaper, and you can use the promo code MMA Rocks 10. It's MMA ROCKS 10. She's taking on Jessica Penne. So big step up in competition for Hannah Goldie here. Only 5-1 as a professional. And Jessica Penne, of course, has been around quite a while. So that's an interesting fight right there, Jeff, for our fellow Reaper in Hannah Goldie.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a high risk, high reward fight. Jessica Penne, she's been around the block a few times. But Bill, if Goldie can get a win here, I think this skyrockets her up the rankings. This is a very exciting matchup.
Yeah, and it's one of many on these prelims here, Jeff. Those prelims are actually really exciting. Jared Gooden, who's a very good fighter, taking on Khabib's cousin, Abubakar Nurmagomedov. So that's a fun fight. Then I'll give you another sleeper fight, Jeff, that a lot of people aren't really looking at. Modestas Bukauskas and Michael Oleksiejczuk. That's going to be that should be a really fun one. Those are two exciting fighters. I think that's a really underrated fight on the prelims here. And then Jillian Robertson against the 2020 standout Miranda Maverick. And I'll leave it at that. Anything else jumping out to you, Jeff?
Yeah, Marc-Andre Barriault versus Abu Izatar. That looks like a fun fight too. But Bill, yeah, I agree with you, man. This card, top to bottom, looks really fun. Those prelims look really good. But I'll be honest with you, Bill, the main card's looking a little light without the co-main event. But the UFC, they've been here before. I'm sure they're going to come up with something really exciting for us.
Yeah, for sure. And the main card too, there's Luana Pinheiro, who doesn't have an opponent as of yet. She's fighting the ever elusive unknown fighter. So we'll see how that one goes. Maybe they'll add another fight to this. They might have something in the works. But who knows? This is why, like with the current COVID stuff, Jeff, I don't look at the cards too far in advance because I don't want to get excited for a fight that doesn't come together. Any one of these fights could get canceled. If we lose the main event, Jeff, I don't want to jinx it or anything, but woof, it's gonna be rough. Maybe make Hannah Goldie and Jessica Penne the main event for this pay-per-view. That's what I say.
That works for me. If there's no other belt on the line, let's do it. But Bill, I will say this: for the most part, I think the last couple of cards, with the exception of this past weekend, I think we've been blessed. I think a lot of things have gone smoothly. But yeah, dude, it's such an X factor, man. Bill, speaking of X factors, we actually had to close the building that I work in for another 2 weeks because we had a few outbreaks. Man. So, it's a huge X factor.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, the kids aren't able to get vaccines yet in a lot of places. I know here in Florida, I don't qualify yet because I'm too young and virile. And I'm not a first responder anymore. So I'm way down the list for getting vaccinated. But luckily, a lot of our older folks have been able to get it, and hopefully it becomes more widely available for everybody, and we're able to, move on as a country, as a community, as a global community. Hopefully everybody's able to put this behind them. Scary times, Jeff, but at least we have fights and booze to talk about. Not a lot of booze talk this week because we started in the morning, Jeff. Reason being, my buddy Jonathan's coming over, who I know you know very well, to help me finish up this turf job in my yard. So of course we're going to be putting some beers away. So I didn't want to be out working in the sun, drinking beers, and then try and sloppily come and do an episode for you guys. Even though that's usually how the show goes, but at least I start out the show like normally pretty sober, and then, build up to, being under the influence. We start over the top, we end up under the influence, Jeff. That's how we do it around here. But I was texting with Jonathan earlier because he's a former wrestler as well, and I sent him the link about Spencer Lee winning with the 2 ACLs, and he was like, how do you move with 2 torn ACLs? My response, Jeff, like a champion. That's how the fuck you move. You move like a champion with 2 torn ACLs. If you're Spencer Lee. So I can't give enough shout outs to Spencer Lee, man. Congratulations on the 3rd national title. And man, it's so impressed with that kid, man. And maybe we'll see him in MMA one day. He's definitely got the toughness. But I got to get started on laying this turf down, Jeff. So anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap it up here?
Yeah, just to thank you again to Slamerican 989 for the teacher shout out. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for your support, and thank you for thanking me. Teaching's a thankless job 99.9% of the time.
And we're glad to hear that you were able to get your first vaccine as well. We're hoping that a lot more people are able to get it, even though you're only 34. So that's awesome. He's up in Michigan. And that's it, man. Don't forget to check out our friends at Team Reaper, reaper1.co. They're doing a lot of big things in this MMA space. Remember, it's not just merchandise. They have training gear. They do rash guards now, MMA sparring gloves, jiu-jitsu gis, all that great stuff. So please go check them out. If you want to grab a Hannah Goldie shirt to support her for her upcoming pay-per-view debut, please go ahead and do that. If you want to get a hold of Jeff for any reason, it's at @animal_Wilson, Twitter and Instagram. You guys know how to get a hold of me. It's at MMA on the Rocks everywhere on social media. You can send me an email, MMAonTheRocks@gmail.com. I do my best to respond to everybody who's letting me know what you're thinking and drinking out there. As always, we appreciate comments, feedback, shares, criticisms, even. Bring it all our way. We can handle criticism. And that's it. That's all we got. So until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye.